It is a lovely day. Really nice. Nice fall day. The kind of day that if you felt like going out somewhere to sit and think, it'd be a really good day to go somewhere and sit and think. And as such, I'm going to go somewhere and sit and think. I don't know exactly where I'm going to go sit and think, but I'm walking. And I've got some lemonade, and I have some extra batteries. I never fill this HD card up. Really like how my neighbor's property looks now. It's great. Kind of cut it back. I used to cut this property years ago. Eventually the backyard just disappeared, but now it's been graveled over, so there's more cars part way back. And looking pretty good back here. Not sure how I'm going to get through it, but I am going to try. It's all about where you put your foot. And I've got to put it in about 6 places, and then I'm going to be home free. All right. We are through. Now I just got to keep my eyes peeled for poison ivy, which I'm not seeing. That's great. There used to be scores and scads of it back here. And way back here, if I wanted to, I could probably dig down, yeah, sure, and find the curb of the buried sidewalk back here that used to cut a lot of the walk off of getting to school for the kids that were segregated. I'm not gonna revisit that particular story because I've told it in a different video. It's nice to see that this house is getting worked on a little bit. Hasn't been for 20 years. Well, there's one guy I didn't vote for. His blood red signs really were a turnoff. Got a lot of nice people in my neighborhood. Hey, ma'am. And I'm walking up Henry Street to where I voted this morning, bright and early. Got up, got a biscuit in me, and voted. Wow, these steps right here just look perfect. I'm going to sit right here. Keep talking. So I'm across the street from behind the house that's next to my house. So I voted for 2 out of the 4 positions that were available. I saw no one running for mayor that is going to make any change. And so why not keep the least harmful? At least we know that I don't know how it's going to go with either one of them. Any idiot can cut a ribbon with a pair of scissors and get their picture taken, and that's just about the only thing that's happened for the last few years. And both of the mayoral candidates are people that have told me in the past that they'd get back to me about something that was concerning to me as a citizen and, a voter. And neither one of them got back to me. So that would tell you immediately that they run with some of the most virulent assholes who live in this town who, are kind of like middle school. You can't be my friend if you're their friend. That kind of BS, monkey S. It's very interesting. But I did vote for a couple of city council people who I'm pretty sure could be a real step up. One of them I pulled up to a house that had a big one of his signs in the front of it and knocked on the door, and it turned out to be where he lived, and I wanted to ask, why should I vote for that guy? And they were really nice people and invited me in, and we had a really good talk and kind of got a little bit of clarity about one another, about what we believe in and what matters, you know, in terms of taking care of other people, which is what elected people are supposed to do. And but anyways, Eric Dehart, I gave him my vote for sure. He made a very good impression. And he's a handy guy. He knows how to fix stuff. We've had too many people, you know, get these board positions on these useless looting organizations that basically pocket all the cash that comes through the mailbox and spend it on drinks and fun. Real scummy people, horrible scummy people. And these looting positions, which sort of sound noble, I was the chairperson of this, I was the blah 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 of that, and it's like, yeah, the whole thing was a bunch of stealing, and you just want to do more of it, you know, from a bigger trough. And plus, most of these folks are friends of the guy that ripped off the town years ago. You know, they still hang with him. He's completely forgiven, and anyone that speaks about the embezzling city manager back in the day is immediately hated by all of these people that are on boards and stuff, because when someone embezzles, one of the ways they hide the money they stole is to throw it at some tax-deductible organization as though it's a benevolent move, when they're just going to write it off their taxes later in the year, you know? It's stupid. And getting some sort of tax form to get money back that you tithed at your church, that's another completely ridiculous mannerism that a lot of people think, you know, the Bible says, but it doesn't. We know it doesn't. And I also voted for somebody named Mike Lemons, who's also running for City Council, different ward. And I looked him up. He has run one of the water companies in town, you know, that gives people water that doesn't come straight out of the river, gets cleaned up. And I taught one of his kids years ago, and she was a wonderful kid. And as I've said before in some of my videos, you can really, I think, not assume, but get some serious takeaways about a family by teaching their children for 7, 8, 9 months, you know, an hour a day. You see the kid more than their youth pastor does. And you really learn what they believe. And, you know, we know where they got what they believe. So Mike Lemons got my vote too. I think those two guys, I don't know either of them terrifically well, but I do know some of the people that I hope they defeat, and those people have no business being given responsibility. They have no business handling cash. And most of the not-for-profits, and in fact churches in our community and probably across the nation, would not sustain an unexpected audit. They would not. And I also believe that a lot of the people that run for office would not pass an unannounced drug test either. And that applies to small town government as well. Just a bunch of drunks and addicts that like to party continuously on somebody else's dime. It's so high school. You know, it's what I hate that about this town. This town could be amazing, but it isn't, right? The only people that are saying it's amazing are people that are partying for free, right? And pretending that it's still high school and they're the homecoming queen and the quarterback. It's stupid. So Eric Dehart and Mike Lemons got my vote this morning. It was great that the machine didn't kick my ballot back out, because I actually changed the name of one of the knuckleheads, one of the Viagra boys that's running for office. And it was a really interesting morning, actually, because as I was walking in, of course, you have to pass the, you know, the herd of people that do favors and expect a favor in return, who are standing there trying to get you to take a pen or a card or some damn thing. And someone that I really dislike, who's quite hateful and evil, made a point of calling out my name and saying hello. I didn't respond with anything but a little wave. And then Mr. Dehart's wife was standing there holding out a pen, and I said I could use a pen, and went up and gave her a hug and said, I know you. And, showed the folks there at least one of the people I'd be voting for. And then someone that represents the opposing mayoral candidate, right? We have an incumbent, and we have a new person, different gender, and one of that person's flying monkeys or acolytes or favor expectors was handing stuff out for me to take, and I said, well, no thank you, but where is that woman? And she wasn't there. These were friends. And what do you want to know? Asked one of them to me. And I said, well, I want to know whether, if this individual gets elected mayor, she's going to be any different than the one we've got right now. Because, and then I looked at my wrist where I'd written it down just in case this conversation happened. I said, because on September 17th, 2019, I spoke before the City Council, and your candidate was there presenting herself as a veterans advocate. Okay? And being a veteran, I went right up to her after I'd spoken about how this town throws veterans under the bus and treats them awfully. Unless, of course, they're on a board somewhere and eating and drinking for free with pocketed cash. But the kind of veterans that don't do those things, which is most of us, mean nothing, right? We just have no value to these folks, these cowards. And I said, well, your candidate on that date 6 years ago told me that she would get in touch with me about my concerns, and had the ability to do it. I'm very easy to find. I said, I haven't heard from her yet, so I'm not going to be voting for mayor this year. And the folks around there know that because I don't hear well, my voice carries. So they found out one person I would vote for and one person, two people that I would not. And I kind of wish that one of the fellas that's running, I think against Eric, was representing a different ward, because then I would have voted for him. But I had a less than positive business experience with that individual once. A very arm's length transaction. And I could realize then that fella is also very, very caught up in the favor givers and favor getters and that whole mess. These folks that hide their board member presence on unedited, Facebook pages that you have to look back and hunt and hunt and hunt. And the only way to find out who's on what boards is to go to your county and, go through the records there and find it, because they're on so many. They pay for nothing. They get paid to party. It's stupid. A lot of folks are driving by from the direction of the voting place. So anyways, I walked in and presented my, regime documentation, and was given something to go, I had to sign off. You still live here? Yeah. Then I went to another table, and a gentleman gave me my ballot, and I went and filled it out and made an edit. And then after feeding it into the machine and getting my sticker, I turned around, and lo and behold, there is a woman that was a TA at one of the schools I taught at during the years just before I retired, and I had worked before that for many years with her husband. He and I did a production of Tom Sawyer together at Holmes Middle School way back in, I don't know, 1998, 99. It was before my leg got broke. And he was an actor, pretty interesting guy. And he knew everything about baseball cards. Died of cancer a few years ago. He was a nice fellow, Mike. But anyways, I saw his wife there, and she was with her granddaughter. But I didn't recognize her granddaughter because it's been 6 years since I taught her granddaughter, and of course, the high school kid looks so different. And we had a greet and a hug and stuff, and I was reintroduced to my ex-student. And lovely, lovely, lovely girl. I remember teaching her for 4 years. She is on some sort of spectrum that would place her in a special needs situation. And just a wonderful person. And a really enjoyable art student to have in elementary school. And never made any trouble. And she just looked wonderful. And so I'm talking to her grandma, and then she asked me, she says, "When did you teach me?" With a really soft voice. And I reminded her that, when you were in, I think, 1st through 5th grade, I taught you art at Leaksville Spray. Do you remember Mr. Hart? And her face lit up, and she said, "Yes." And then, and I'll probably start tearing up again, for the remainder of the conversation, she had reached down and she was holding my hand while we were talking. And it was just such a wonderful, gentle feeling of being trusted by someone and safe in their presence. I think going in both directions, and it was just lovely. And then I turned around and had a brief interaction with someone else who's caught up in the party and got out of there. And then I came home, and my wife and I are sitting around on the porch, and I'm having another cup of coffee, talking about the election day. And I noticed that there's a big SUV sitting out just to the left of our driveway on the road, and a fella that I know who who walks his dog all the time around here, beautiful dog named Zorro. We're chatting, somebody in the car and him. And being nosy like I am, I picked up my leaf blower and headed out in that direction. And said hello to the guy with the dog. And the car pulled up ahead, and lo and behold, it was another student from the same elementary school who was in the same grade as the young lady that I saw up at the when I was voting. And he said, "You're Mr. Hart. You were my teacher." And I said, yes, I was. And he told me who he was, and I remembered him as soon as I heard his whole name. And he's in his last year of public school right now, and looking real healthy and happy. And his daddy was in the car, and I talked to his dad for a minute, and it turns out his dad used to rent the basement apartment in the house directly next to us, which I had forgotten. But then when I saw him smiling, I remembered his face. And he says, "Yeah, we had a few talks back then." And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember you. I do remember you." And it was just a really pleasant interaction. And then I noticed that another car was coming up behind them on the road. And I said, "Hey, can you pull up so we can keep talking? There's a car behind you." And they pulled over to the curb. And who's coming up the road? But Eric Dehart, the guy I had just voted for, and he said hello to me and waved, and we had a little back and forth. I think he said something like, "They don't forget their teachers." And I said, "Yeah, I used to their parents used to think I was nuts, but I never had a problem with any of the kids." And off he went, and I kept talking to that young man and his daddy for a minute, and then off they went. And it was a very, very cool morning. Very nice so far. My wife took off to vote and then to run over and see how her ma's doing. So I expect she won't be back for a couple hours. I'll have to think up something for supper. The graphic that I created for this chat is going to have to suffice. I don't believe I have enough battery here to do a video, which is why I'm doing audio. But it pretty much says how I feel. I voted for 2 out of the 4 positions that there are people running for because there's just no good people to vote for those other 2 positions. Those two wards are going to get no help from whoever gets elected. Trust me, right? They're going to go for the free beer in the man cave every time, or whatever their preacher tells them to do, right? Because their preacher is their God. Go puncture that dude's tires. All right. But anyways, something else that's been a little bit on my heart has been, I've been kind of thinking about the President of the United States these days and how many times when he gets in front of a microphone, there's another one of my vote for me phone calls. Potential spam. No, it's not potential. It's spam. The do not call registry doesn't stop political phone calls. But anyway, how many times during rallies and since have you seen that man say something really kind of a little bit shocking, okay, like the Arnold Palmer thing a while back, okay? But before saying it, saying something like, I shouldn't do this, or I hate when I say something like this, or I know I shouldn't say this, but then it gets said, right? And the dude just seems like extremely conflicted with right and wrong, okay? I shouldn't say this. He knows he shouldn't say it. Why? Because the people you're bamboozling are supposedly Jesus followers, okay? They're not supposed to be, cool with pervy things. But they are cool with pervy things, so he says it. And it's always dumb and it's always gross. I imagine we'll hear a little dog barking here in a sec. Hello there, you. And I know a lot of people that really dislike that guy, right? He's morally ambivalent. What comes out of his mouth is literally a confession of his failure to be able to make a right decision and then act upon it. I shouldn't say this. I know I shouldn't say this. I hate when I say this. And then he says it, right? And I had an experience recently with a friend about that very strange kind of thing, and how it also happens in regular old real life. Where someone says, I hate it when I do this, and I loathe doing this, but I have an ask. And then they do the thing that they hate and loathe. Sup, man? And I see that, and the behavior of that president is roughly analogous, okay? To be aware of, the uncoolness of a thing. But everybody does it, I guess, or something. It's tough. It's tough. Because such behavior is very, very easy to call out and, feel morally superior about. Got some wind here. When it's a political official, right? Somebody who's in the media and very clownish all the time. It becomes very easy to just really hate on somebody like that. And, if they're hateful, hate them. There's lots of things that God hates, right? If we hate the things God hates, we won't get entangled in them. So things that are hateful and loathsome shouldn't be done. That's it. Don't do it. And I'm a little bit amazed also at how Someone can look at an easily triggered, eternally bitter, materialistic celebrity politician and see the rot of celebrity and the dishonesty that it requires, and not see when they do it themselves. Not understand why knowing that something is hateful and loathsome means don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. That's what clears you up, is making the other binary choices. Because to do a hateful and loathsome thing and admit it, how could it possibly not be received as hateful and loathsome by the person being asked to do it? Right? You know, you've just described what you're doing as hateful and loathsome and asked me to do it. It's very strange. Now, some things are less hateful and loathsome than other things. You know, if someone said, hey, I don't like that guy over there, go over and light his flag on fire. He's got that political flag hanging in his yard. Go light that on fire. And I might not like the person that's name is on the flag, but I'm not going to do that person the service of getting myself in trouble by expressing my dislike for a candidate in the way that they would envision it. Why don't you go over and light that flag on fire yourself, bro? So, a lot on my mind today. Oh, it was kind of funny. I texted the fella that I'm going to be supporting for sheriff here in the county, whose sign is out in front of my yard, and I'll name him Billy Parker. I've had a lunch with him. He seems like a real good guy, and some back and forths. He seems different, disconnected from the scum. Maybe the kind of guy that'll start throwing audits down on the crooks and busting them, sending them to jail, taking away the shit they bought with what they stole. Give it back. Well, it looks like my daughter's here. Nope, she forgot her key. Well, anyways, it's been a pretty interesting day. I'm going to pause this now and yank out the computer and get back to work. Election Day, North Carolina, 2025. Eric Dehart, Mike Lemons. Next March, vote for Billy Parker for sheriff. And be very careful about who you put in those county commissioner seats. Because I'm telling you, those seats need a good upholstery cleaning. They stink.